Hey folks, today I've got this little book which was for students, grade school through, I guess, middle school, maybe even high school, and it's from 1880, and it's called Graded Selections for Memorizing. So it's sort of poems and other little literary works from 1880. It says Graded Selections for Memorizing, adapted for use at home and in school, by John B. Peaslee, Cincinnati Public Schools. So, if you think of 1880, I mean, we can set the stage there, right? So, there's no airplanes, there's no cars. We're 15 years from the end of the Civil War, so that would be fresh in people's minds at this time. You've got railroads. So you're starting to see the Industrial Revolution and some technology come in. And I don't really know anything about this book. I mean, I looked up and tried to get information, and there really isn't anything. So the best way to see what this book's about is to actually read what the author wrote about it at the time. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to read this intro. Notes and suggestions. Believing that the practice of memorizing choice thoughts from our best authors should be made a prominent feature of school work, I recommended some 3 years ago its introduction into the several grades of the Cincinnati Public Schools, and subsequently prepared a pamphlet for this purpose containing some 200 prose and poetical extracts, brief, telling, yet each complete in the expression of thought. These selections were adopted by the Board of Education and made a part of the school curriculum. 1 hour of each week is now devoted to this literary work. The idea of its introduction is not new in the history of education. In a similar manner, the Germans have long been in the habit of training their children in the knowledge and admiration of the literature of their own land. The Arabs, the most civilized nations of the ancient world, taught their young to repeat the undying thoughts of their poets under the beautiful name of unstrung pearls. The powerful influence for good which this literary work is exerting upon our pupils, its hearty endorsement by the teachers and the patrons of the schools, and the encouragement I have received from many prominent educators and men of letters in other parts of the country, have led to the preparation of this volume, which is more complete and comprehensive than the former, and better adapted for use both in our schools and at our homes. It contains extracts from the writings of more than 100 standard authors in English literature. Plan of the book. For children from 6 to 13 years of age, the selections are graded. Each year's work contains about 320 lines or 8 lines per week. The greater part of the selections for younger children consists of entire pieces, and of such as are calculated to develop their emotional nature, the imagination, the love of home and parents, kindness to animals, etc., and to give them correct rules of action. Those for more advanced use consist primarily of brief extracts containing grand and ennobling thoughts, calculated to inspire them with higher aspirations of life, to lead them into pure fields of English literature, and to teach them to love and reverence our great authors. There is no attempt made at classification as to subject matter, except in the last few pages, which are devoted to patriotism. And again, that patriotism component may be partially driven by what I mentioned before about the Civil War being fresh in people's minds at this time. So this book at this time, this is 1880, and they expected children starting at the age of first year, which would be 6-year-old children, to memorize these entire works. I don't think I could memorize some of these even today. It could be a challenge. And it's pretty sophisticated stuff for a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid. Let me read the conclusion of this little introduction. Conclusion. To look practically at the good to be accomplished by the exercise, we find that it trains the memory. The memory needs as much strengthening by exercise as the muscles of the arm, but it should be employed, as here, in storing the mind with what is worth remembering. The committal to memory, too, of these great thoughts is a means to the elevation and expansion of the mind, and an incitement to purer moral habits. These memory gems may be guiding stars to our children through life, for what one learns by heart when a child he never forgets. The exercise familiarizes the student with the pure form of language and stimulates the desire for a better kind of mental food. The critical acumen of the scholar is thus awakened. He is led to exercise his judgment, to think for himself, and to express his thoughts in intelligible English. By the author, May 1880. So, obviously, I'm not going to read all these works, but I'll just jump to them randomly. I haven't pre-selected any of these. So this would be, again, for a 6-year-old. If ever I see on bush or tree young birds in a pretty nest, I must not in play steal the young birds away to grieve their mother's breast. My mother, I know, would sorrow so should I be stolen away. So I'll speak to the birds in my softest words, nor hurt them in my play. You can see they're all numbered with Roman numerals. You remember your Roman numerals. Here's 23. And some aren't attributed to anybody. Others have an attribution to an author. This is Tennyson. I'll read this one. What does little birdie say in her nest at peep of day? Let me fly, says little birdie. Mother, let me fly away. Birdie, rest a little longer, till the little wings are stronger. So she rests a little longer, then she flies away. What does little baby say in her bed at peep of day? Baby says, like little birdie, let me rise and fly away. Baby sleep a little longer, till the little limbs are stronger. If she sleeps a little longer, baby too shall fly away. So here's second year. So this would be a 7-year-old child. And again, many here don't have any attribution, or don't reference any author. I'll pick this one at random. Plump little baby clouds, dimpled and soft, rock in their air cradles, swinging aloft. Great snowy mother clouds, broad bosoms white, watch over the baby clouds, slumbering light. Tired little baby clouds, dreaming of fears, turn in their air cradles, dropping soft tears. Great brooding mother clouds, watching o'er all, let their warm mother tears tenderly fall. There's these little bookmarks. I think these look handmade. And I have no idea if I doubt their significance, since the location in the book is particularly significant, since there's just these two on this one page, but could be. Here's third year, so this would be 8-year-olds. Here's a Wordsworth. Over in the meadow, in the reeds on the shore, lived a mother muskrat and her little ratties 4. Dive, said the mother. We dive, said the 4. So they dived and they burrowed in the reeds on the shore. Over in the meadow, in the Snug Bee Hive, lived a mother honey bee and her little honeys 5. Buzz, said the mother. We buzz, said the 5. So they buzzed and they hummed in the Snug Bee Hive. So I don't know how many they expected the kids to memorize. There's quite a few in here. For each grade. This is the 4th year, so this would be 9-year-olds. A dreary place would be this earth, were there no little people in it. The song of life would lose its mirth, were there no children to begin it. No little forms like buds to grow and make the admiring heart surrender. No little hands on breast and brow to keep the thrilling love chords tender. The sterner souls would grow more stern, unfeeling nature more inhumane, and man to stoic coldness turn, and woman would be less than woman. Life's song indeed would lose its charm, were there no babies to begin it. A doleful place this world would be, were there no little people in it. Here's a short one. Teach me to feel another's woe, to hide the fault I see, that mercy I to others show, that mercy show to me. Alexander Pope. Here's a Longfellow called Children. What the leaves are to the forest, with light and air for food, ere their sweet and tender juices have been hardened into wood. That to the world are children, through them it feels the glow of a brighter and sunnier climate than reaches the trunks below. Come to me, O ye children, and whisper in my ear what the birds and the winds are singing in your sunny atmosphere. For what are all our contrivings in the wisdom of our books when compared with your caresses and the gladness of your looks? Ye are better than all the ballads that ever were sung or said, for ye are the living poems, and all the rest are dead. Longfellow. This book is pretty fragile. It looks like as we get into these later grades, there's a lot more pieces to memorize. So this is 6th year, which is, I guess, an 11-year-old. Unfortunately, the neighbors are doing some work outside, so hopefully it won't be too distracting. Longfellow's advice to pupils. Live up to the best that is in you. Live noble lives as you all may, in whatever condition you may find yourselves, so that your epitaph may be that of Euripides. This monument does not make thee famous, O Euripides, but thou makest this monument famous. There is a day of sunny rest for every dark and troubled night, and grief may bide an evening guest, but joy shall come with early light. Bryant, blessed are they that mourn. Here's a little clipping somebody made from a paper. Sometimes I always like to look at the back side of these because sometimes there's something interesting, and it's certainly something going on with all this back content, but I don't know exactly what. Looks like this might be an ad for some elixir, and then this part looks like some kind of story that I only have partial because it's clipped. But sometimes it's fun to see what was the unintended part of a clipping like this. But the actual thing that was clipped on purpose is this idea of a Sunday child, Wednesday's child, and little poems for each one. A theme and a poem for each one. And that's what was clipped out by somebody. Probably the owner of this book, who was a student at this time. O never from thy tempted heart let thine integrity depart. When disappointment fills thy cup, undaunted, nobly drink it up. Truth will prevail and justice show her tardy honors. Sure though slow, bear on, bear bravely on. Thomas Buchanan Reed. Oh, humbly take what God bestows, and like his own fair flowers, look up in sunshine with a smile, and humbly bend in showers. Caroline Gilman. Labor is rest from the sorrows that greet us, rest from all petty vexations that meet us, rest from sin promptings that ever entreat us, rest from world sirens that lure us to ill. Work the pure slumbers shall wait on thy pillow. Work thou shalt ride over care's coming billow. Lie not down, wearied 'neath woe's weeping willow. Work with a stout heart and resolute will. Work for some good, be it ever so slowly. Cherish some flower, be it ever so lowly. Labor, all labor is noble and holy. Mrs. Frances S. Osgood. Better to weave in the web of life a bright and golden filling, and to do God's will with a ready heart and hands that are prompt and willing, than to snap the delicate, minute threads of our curious lives asunder, and then blame heaven for the tangled ends, and sit and grieve and wonder. Mrs. M. A. Kidder. And then we get into the sections that aren't specific, grade specific anymore, for so-called advanced scholars. Which in the introduction were said to be sort of these larger, nobler kind of snippets. Life should be full of earnest work, our hearts undashed by fortune's frown. Let perseverance conquer fate, and merit seize the victor's crown. The battle is not to the strong, the race not always to the fleet, and he who seeks to pluck the stars will lose the jewels at his feet. Phoebe Cary. The distant mountains that uprear their solid bastions to the skies are crossed by pathways that appear as we to higher levels rise. The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. Longfellow, The Ladder of St. Augustine. You know, this was the era of Providence. There's a lot of religious undertones to things. The man who seeks one thing in life, and but one, may hope to achieve it before life be done. But he who seeks all things wherever he goes only reaps from the hopes which around him he sows, a harvest of barren regrets. Owen Meredith, from Lucille. Possessions vanish and opinions change, and passion holds a fluctuating seat. But subject neither to eclipse nor wane, duty remains. William Wordsworth. Little minds are tamed and subdued by misfortune, but great minds rise above it. Washington Irving. Build the more stately mansions, O my soul, as the swift seasons roll. Leave the low vaulted past. Let each new temple, nobler than the last, shut thee from heaven with a dome more vast. Till thou at length art free, leaving thine outgrown shell by life's unresting sea. Oliver Wendell Holmes. So nigh is grandeur to our dust, so near is God to man. When duty whispers low, thou must, the youth replies, I can. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Alas, how light a cause may move dissension between hearts that love, hearts that the world in vain had tried, and sorrow but more closely tied, that stood the storm when waves were rough, yet in a sunny hour fall off, like ships that have gone down at sea, when heaven was all tranquility. Thomas More. I call therefore a complete, generous education that which fits a man to perform justly, skillfully, and magnanimously all the offices, both private and public, of peace and war. John Milton. Read a few more. Character teaches above our wills. Men imagine that they communicate their virtue or vice only by overt actions, and do not see that virtue or vice emits a breath every moment. Emerson, SelfReliance. There's a lot of Shakespeare in here as well. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not be false to any man. Thou canst not then be false to any man. Sorry. I always have trouble with Shakespeare. Here's another Shakespeare. Sweet are the uses of adversity, which, like the toad, ugly and venomous, wears yet a precious jewel in his head. And this our life exempt from public haunt, finds tongues in trees, books in the running brooks, sermons in the stones, and good in everything. It's from As You Like It. As I noted, towards the end, we start to get into some that are what the author called patriotic, which I think we're heading into some of those now, which are kind of interesting to see the definition of patriotic at this time. And of course, again, I think it would be sort of adjusted or tuned to the times, with the Civil War, as I said, being sort of on our minds, on the minds of the people of this time, or in their near memory. Yes, I have ambition, but it is the ambition of being the humble instrument in the hands of Providence, of reconciling a divided people, of reviving concord and harmony in a distracted land. It is the ambition of contemplating the glorious spectacle of a free, united, and prosperous people. Henry Clay, True Ambition. And of course I'm speaking of the American Civil War. These are all American. Well, it said in the beginning they were American authors, but I think there's been a couple that aren't, to be honest with you. But the book is focused on American grade school students. We join ourselves to no party that does not carry the flag and keep step in the music of the Union. Again, you can see this is their definition. This is the patriotic section. The Pilgrims Vision by Oliver Wendell Holmes. I see the living tide roll on. It crowns with fiery towers the icy capes of Labrador, the Spaniards' land of flowers. It streams beyond the splintered ridge that parts the northern shores. From eastern rock to sunset wave, the continent is ours. So what do you think? How many of these could you memorize? I think this section has some 145 pieces in this advanced readers section, or advanced students section. Be a lot to memorize. So those are some selections from this 1880 book of graded selections for memorizing. From 1880. I hope you found this relaxing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.